So what we are going to do on this call is that we are going to just talk briefly about your interview experiences at NYU Stern, from which you have already received an admit, and then we would move on to speaking about your interview experience at Chicago booth, right? And just
Sure,
for our
sure.
viewers, if you can just elaborate a little bit to start with about your background, that would be great.
So, yeah, I did my graduation in 2010. Then I worked for 19 months in an analytics company based out of Gurgaon.
Hmm.
Then I went to XLRI, pursued my MBA. After XLRI, I've been working with JP Morgan as an investment banking analyst for last 2.5 years. It would be 3 years, so yeah, around 3 years.
That as a re-applicant, do you feel that your chances were hampered slightly because you had done an MBA before? And if you feel so, to what extent? And yeah,
Yeah, so initially I was skeptical that okay, this is my I have already done an MBA, so I'll have to justify why I'm going for the second MBA. But as you helped a lot in arriving at, I mean, what could be the possible line of reasoning, and then I did that as my optional essay in all the applications that I did. And in the interview also, my response was on similar lines that I have done an MBA that was very academic and I had very little practical understanding at that point of time. So now that I have more than 4 years of experience and I've already worked in JP Morgan, I'm due from promotion, so this is right time for me to do an international MBA when I mean, I believe I have decent work experience. So that was line of thought.
cool, perfect. So let's move on to speaking about your interview experiences, both at
Yeah,
NYU Stern and Chicago booth. So can you,
yeah.
just to begin with, I mean, can you tell me the difference between the two interviews that you faced? Any prominent differences between the two? Just a broad understanding.
Yeah, so the biggest difference, I mean, in NYU Stern, I interviewed with a member of admission committee, and she works with NYU Stern. While in Chicago booth, I was interviewed by second year student, and it was a blind interview. While in NYU Stern, they had gone through my application before interviewing me.
Right. So that was the only single base difference between the two, or did you face that the way an alum interviewed you or the
Yeah.
admissions officer interviewed you, was there any significant difference between the two?
Well, there was not much difference considering an NYU admission committee member, Sarah, she was very nice in entire interview. Uh, I mean, she didn't ask anything. She was very calm and composed throughout the interview, and she kept on, I mean, she kept on trying things, I mean, making things simpler for me.
Okay.
So she was appreciating it throughout the interview. So that was the best part. And in Chicago booth, the second year student, she had prior experience in investment banking, so they, I guess, mapped accordingly.
Okay.
So she was also very nice, but she was more of a buddy kind of because she was a second year student and it was very conversational in nature. Okay, what do you do? I have done this. So what do you suggest? What should I do?
Okay.
So
Okay. So let's speak about your NYU interview first, and then we'll move on to speaking about your Chicago booth interview, and then we will just sort of get into the nitty gritties of both. So
sure.
just to, so just an FYI, I know this that you interviewed on campus. So can you just share a
Yeah.
little bit about your experience of being on campus? What was it like, and what advantage do you feel it gave you because of the fact that you were on campus interviewing? If vis-a-vis, if you would have just interviewed via Skype.
So I did basic research that where should I interview for a Stern, and most of the responses that I got from alumni as well as students there, they told me that if you want to show your seriousness, I mean, they like it when you fly down to New York to take Stern interview. While in both cases different. I mean, they are like fine with it in both of the ways.
Mm.
So sorry, both the ways. So in NYU, unfortunately, the day I landed, it was very cold, so I didn't got a chance. I wanted to go to NYU campus, but unfortunately couldn't. The next day I went for interview. I reached there an hour early. I had lunch in cafeteria and I talked to a couple of students.
Mm.
So that was the best part. And then my interview started at 2 and my interview started at 2:15. So my interviewer was late by 2-3 minutes. When I entered her in her cabin, so I spilled a full glass of water on the floor. So next 5 minutes was like she was cleaning mess. So my interview was very 20 minutes, 15 minutes. For 15 minutes she asked questions, and for next 5 minutes I was like, okay, you have. I tried to I wanted to show her that I'm very interested in Stern, and I have done proper research before coming to Stern. So I ask questions based on why fintech. You have been the first, and why you Stern is the first college to start fintech as a specialization. Can I
Mm.
start a club in fintech? How can I be a teaching assistant?
Mm. Great. So you spoke about the fact that you had a sort of a brief opportunity to be in the cafeteria and speak with current students. So, A, did you do some research on what kind
Yeah.
of questions you wanted to ask people when you interacted with them? And what exactly did you get out of your conversations while speaking with current students?
So with current students, so I told them I want to work in investment banking post my MBA. How
Mm.
Stern is going to help me. So most of the things that said I knew it before, but just wanted to confirm that okay. So they have a very strong alum base in investment banks across. So how do they target investment bank? How Graduate Finance Association helps them
Mm.
in landing a job or in landing an interview. So my conversation was on that part only, and I talked to Harin. I had extensively talked to Harinder Singh. So he will be graduating this year. So he was quite helpful throughout the process. On the interview day also, I talked to him. So he was like very nice in a way that he told me to calm down, be yourself. You will get through because they have read your application. You have very high chances of landing and admit from NYU Stern. And I believe that taking interview in New York was the best decision. I think if I had similar interview in India, I'm not sure if I would have got through.
Great. And why do you feel that?
So based on my research and conversation with current students, so current students also said, so they told me that they schedule off-campus interview in London and Delhi only,
Okay.
and London and Mumbai,
Mm.
and people from all over US, so they have to fly down to New York. So they just want to make sure that you are really interested in why you Stern, and you really want to be here. So a consultant to whom I talked, he said that NYU is bit of insecure.
Mm.
So
Okay.
they just want to make sure that applicant is genuinely interested in them.
Okay. Great. Awesome. So just to summarize what you said so far, that when you spoke with current students, you mostly asked about and kept your conversations around the fact that what were clubs like and what were their involvement like. And you also knew the fact that the
Yeah,
admissions committee has read your application at NYU, which was not the case at
yeah.
Chicago booth. So, what was your strategy going in? I mean, did you prepare? How did you exactly prepare for your interviews?
So I had three mock interviews with you before. Yeah, three mock interviews with you before. So I was kind of prepared with the normal questions that they're going to ask.
Mm.
Just that the moment I entered in her cabin and I spilled the water, so I became a bit nervous and I could have done better in interview. So just after the interview also, I just dropped your mail saying that it wasn't a very great conversation because it was a very short and crisp.
Mm.
And most of the times I violated that 90 seconds rule. I realized that I kept on speaking throughout the interview and gave her very little chance.
Mm.
But thankfully she was nice enough. So my strategy was very simple that I read my application before interview and I practiced on standard questions that are generally asked in MBA interview.
Mm.
And we practiced in three mock sessions. Then I did practice with one of my colleagues. So yeah, that helped me a lot.
Okay, so taking mock interviews and reading your applications, those are your two biggest tips. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So, just a quick run through of what kind of questions were asked during your NYU interview. if you can remember any, even if you are paraphrasing it, it's okay.
No, the first question was, tell me about yourself. I have gone through your application. I have your CV in front of me. Tell me about yourself. So that was on personal as professional as well as personal front. And then, so I landed there on 29th of January. So there was massive protest going on near JFK. So she asked me if I am okay because the moment I landed, I saw protesters in front of me.
Okay.
So she just uh, asked me if I am okay, and then the interview started with what is your short-term, long-term goal, what kind of companies do you want to work in post-MBA, and which are your typical target companies,
Mm-hmm.
and then how will you contribute to the NYU fraternity, and how do you think NYU will contribute in your personal or professional development? Why Stern?
Okay.
Yes, these were the
So
questions.
it was a pretty quick interview, I believe that she asked 6 7 questions in 15 minutes.
Question.
That was like rapid fire. So anything unexpected that you encountered during your NYU interview?
No, nothing as such, but she kept me on asking question, what kind of club would you be involved in? So I initially prepared for Graduate Finance Association, and then there is a Michael Price, their equity research and equity fund management group of Stern. So I told her that I'm primarily interested in these, but she kept on asking, okay, in extracurricular, in social, what kind of club would you look for? So if working in group, what so if you have five or six, so yeah, there was one question. So if you have to recruit five, people for your project,
Mm-hmm.
then what qualities will you evaluate in them? I mean, what would you look? Uh, and then there was a question, how will your peers describe you? How will your peer describe you? How will your boss describe you? How will your subordinates describe you?
Okay. Were there any experience-based questions? For example, talk about a failure or talk about your leadership achievement, etc.
Yeah, there was one. In NYU Stern, there was one. Leadership, when you showed leadership quality.
Okay. Mhm. And what was the process like? So when did she, so did she ask you a question and then she just used to simply listen and make notes, or did she used to interject when you were speaking after like a couple of sentences in?
No, she took a very short note of the interview, and it was like, I mean, she gave me ample time to speak, so I kept on speaking throughout the interview.
So
So
she
it
did
was
not
more of a one-way
interject.
conversation in NYU Stern, that's why I just after coming out of interview, I said that I didn't do well. I could have done better because I kept on saying something. I did this, did that, and I believe this will help me, and how a Stern is perfect fit for me.
And to what extent was the focus of the interview was on why you want to come to Stern and what will you contribute here? Because after speaking with you and sort of taking this debrief session, I get a feeling that the NYU Stern interview was more focused on the fact that why you want to come to Stern and how will you contribute here. So am I correct
Yeah,
in assuming that? Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Cool, cool, cool. Perfect.
It
So
was around those two questions.
okay. Okay. And she kept like sort of drilling on these two
Yeah.
aspects. Okay. So, I mean, what were the highlights of your interview? Did you feel that okay, these are the few questions that I nailed perfectly, uh, and so yeah, I mean, so just like your strengths and weaknesses during the interview, what you felt worked and what you felt did not work for you.
So I guess I did. I had done an extensive research on why is turn thing. So I had ample idea about why is turn, how many credits do student take, what all the specializations are there, what kind of firm would I be targeting from Stern, and then the second strategy of mine was that I had interacted with a lot of alums, starting from head of North America investment banking to current students. So I took their names throughout the interview. So she kind of liked it that he is aware and he has talked to he has talked to many alums before coming for an interview. And the third thing was that I tried to show my international exposure. Okay, I have worked this the same three things that you told me to highlight in the interview, so I kept on highlighting that only, rephrasing my answers.
So
But
the
yeah,
strategies
the
worked.
theme was like those three things. Why Stern, how Stern will fit into my career plan, how Stern will fit into my career plan. Then the second one being this international exposure part, third alum.
Okay. And at any point in your interview, did the interviewer push for why you want to do an MBA after you have already done one of your MBAs? So was that the question, that why the
No, no,
certification?
no, no, she didn't ask that.
Okay, perfect. So I
So I
think
was expecting, but she didn't ask.
okay. Perfect. So any advice that you would like to give applicants who are targeting NYU Stern?
So NYU Stern, so they like when your essay or when your interview in your interview, if you uh, kind of make them feel that he is very genuinely interested in Stern and has done a thorough research.
Okay.
So they are like they want their student to like them before coming to NYU Stern, and so
Mhm.
in this regard, they in the throughout the process, I realized that they are like how this guy will fit into a Stern culture, and is he really interested in coming to Stern?
Okay.
So I guess for anyone from India who is applying, I would suggest if he gets an interview invite, he should fly down to New York and take interview because that helps a lot in Stern. Not
Exactly.
that is not the case with other colleges, not even with Chicago both, but for Stern, I guess this works.
Cool, perfect. So I think this is where we could wrap up our discussion on Stern and move on to speaking a little bit about Chicago Booth.